In the United States, at the federal level, judges are appointed by the president and confirmed by the United States Senate, and they are appointed to a lifetime term. However, in many states, judges are elected officials and have to run for election every certain number of years and be elected to their seat. Both these methods have their pros and cons. This video takes a look at some of the pros and cons of having the people directly elect judges, as opposed to having them appointed. The biggest pro of directly electing judges is that it is clearly the most democratic option. The people get to have a direct say in who is running the judicial branch of their government. We generally accept that democracy works well for our other branches of government, and the entire foundation of our government is one of democracy, in which you get to vote for the officials who run our society. Another big pro of this is that it makes judges much more accountable, especially when compared to lifetime appointments. The fact that a judge can be voted out at a future date makes them much easier to hold accountable. Under our current appointment system, there is basically no recourse for a judge who is appointed to a major position and then turns out to be generally considered very poor at their job. It is very difficult to remove a judge, whereas if they were elected and had elections at regular intervals, it'd be very easy for a challenger to come in and replace them in the next election. Another big pro of electing judges is that it gives it much more public legitimacy. Unaccountable appointed officials inherently seem less legitimate than elected officials. Elected officials have the weight of the democratic vote backing them, making their decisions seem much more legitimate exercises of power and not tyrannical. One of the biggest cons of electing judges is that the average voter is not necessarily the best judge of a legal mind. The primary role of a judge is to interpret our laws and precedent and make accurate and faithful decisions that reflect the laws we have already created. This is very different than a legislative position in which your goal is in fact to make new laws, and it is perfectly appropriate to directly inject the political will of the voters. However, with electing judges, you create a possibility that judges will be deciding opinions more based around public opinion than the actual law. This is obviously a big problem for multiple reasons. One is it undermines the legitimate role of the legislature in crafting laws. And two, it allows for totally unqualified judges to be elected simply by making decisions that are popular, even if they are unlawful. Another big problem with this is that judges are one of our best defenses against tyranny of the majority, especially at the judicial level, where judges are frequently asked to interpret the protections of the Constitution. They're one of the best lines of defenses against a majority of people trying to silence a dissident minority. While a wide majority of Americans could elect a friendly legislature that would try to pass laws to suppress some dissident minority, because they cannot directly elect judges, it's much harder for them to take over the judiciary branch in this same way. And judges frequently strike down laws that Congress attempts to pass that violate people's constitutional rights. The direct election of judges also injects a huge amount of partisan politics into the judiciary. Judges are supposed to be politically neutral and not even really discuss their political positions. However, when you elect judges directly, it strongly encourages them to go around and campaign like any other politician and to take popular political positions and to attack their opponents for having unpopular political positions. This makes judges even more partisan figures and delegitimizes them enormously. It also brings in the issue of campaign finance. Right now at the federal level, judges just have to do a good job and hope they impress a president to appoint them to a higher position. However, when judges have to run for election, they have to go around and try and raise money to spend on their election campaign. And this brings up even larger corruption issues than what we already see from campaign finance in the legislature. Imagine a judge who took millions of dollars for a tight re-election campaign having to decide on the fate of said person who donated millions of dollars to them. It would clearly not be possible for them to make a fair decision and for that decision to be seen as fair by anyone else. And it would further expand the power of big business and big money over our political process, of which they already dominate, because they would now have a direct hand in the election of judges. And because people are less informed about judges, and because there's no party lines, it is even easier for judgeships to be bought through massive campaign spending than for seats in the legislature. On the whole, there are a lot of flaws with appointing judges, but it seems like directly electing them is generally worse. And there's really no ideal way that we've come up with so far to ensure that we have high-quality judges that are not partisan hacks at all levels of our government. Let us know what you think about the direct election of judges and what alternatives there might be out there that might be better, and like and subscribe to learn more.